Good evening. 先生们、女士们，大家晚上好。Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Everyone, good evening. 我是 Paul Bell. 我的中文名字叫博文里。I'm Paul Bell. My Chinese name, for those of you who care, is Bo Wenli. Sometimes since I'm also the chairman of the board of the Confucius Institute, sometimes I'm just called Bo Jushi, which is Chairman Bo, styled after Mao Jushi. 我是俄克拉荷马大学文理学院的名誉院长。Which means I'm the Dean Emeritus of the College of Arts and Sciences. 我荣幸的代表俄克拉荷马大学文理学院和俄大孔子学院，欢迎大家来参加今晚的研讨会。今晚的 I should read my notes. 今晚的诺业奖宴会 which means that I am very pleased to represent the University of Oklahoma College of Arts and Sciences and the OU Confucius Institute and to welcome everybody to participate in this evening's Newman Prize banquet. And for our laureate, 我特别要祝贺2015年的 Newman 语文学奖的获奖者，台湾来的著名作家朱天文。So I would like to especially congratulate this year's Newman Prize laureate, Zhu Tianwen. 向您祝贺。Okay, 现在用英文吧。Pete asked me to say a few words about OU's engagement with China, which I'm pleased to do so. The University of Oklahoma began teaching Chinese language in 1977, with the Chinese minor added in 2000 and the Chinese major in 2005. And this year, I'm pleased to announce that there are over 300 students studying Chinese at OU in the fall and spring semester, which making Chinese language the second largest enrollment and the second largest major this year in modern languages. Finally beat out those French-speaking people. The Spanish are yet to come. The University of Oklahoma has actually a very long history of international engagement and especially engagement with China. A centerpiece of that engagement has been OU's international literary journal, World Literature Today, which was founded in 1927 by Professor Roy Temple House. And he devised a logo for the journal, which is a sailing ship, a full-rig sailing ship, against a rising sun with the Latin motto, Lux a Peregre, which means light from abroad. It was a statement that reflected the goal of world literature today to enlighten its then mostly American readership by exposing them to the literature of the world. Today, World Literature Today is arguably the leading magazine of international literature in the United States. Probably still better known outside of Oklahoma than inside of Oklahoma, but you do your best to try and bring culture where it's needed. Today, over the years, WLT has provided extensive coverage of Chinese authors. And RC, you can probably tell us the first issue that was in which you covered a Chinese author because I couldn't find it. Back in the 1930s, 1940s, we here in Oklahoma, World Literature Today at least, was paying attention to what was going on in the literature of China. More recently, we've seen an increase in an escalation of that coverage. In 2007, WLT devoted an entire issue to the literature of China, of modern China. Chinese poet Bai Dao was named the Pewterball Fellow in the year 2008, and poet Duo Duo was the laureate for the 2010 Neustadt Prize in International Literature. And WLT also cooperates with Beijing Normal University to publish Chinese language editions of WLT in China. A newer addition to the constellation of programs engaging with China here at OU is the OU Confucius Institute, which I serve as chairman of the board. Founded in 2006, this 8-year-old partnership between OU and Beijing Normal University is supported financially by OU's College of Arts and Sciences and the Office of Chinese Language Council International in Beijing, otherwise known as Hanban. OUCI works jointly with OU's East Asia Institute in Tulsa to help Oklahoma school districts establish programs in Chinese language in K through 12, providing them with in-service training and educational resources, and helping them find Chinese teachers. In the old days, most of our Chinese teachers were volunteers, temporary teachers. Many of them came from China. But I'm pleased to report that today, of the 44 schools in Oklahoma that teach Chinese, 42 of them have locally hired teachers. Only 2 of them are using teachers, volunteer teachers from outside of Oklahoma. So, in 4 of the past 5 years, OU, Confucius Institute, and the East Asia Institute in Tulsa have partnered to put on a federally funded StarTalk program, which provides training for Chinese language teachers to help, again, promote Chinese language training in Oklahoma. The StarTalk evaluation team is called the OU Camp, quote, an exemplary program, and we'll be doing that program again this summer in Tulsa. A growing part of what OUCI does for OU is to help our students go to China. In the past 2 years, we've had 27 students from OU get scholarships from the Confucius Institute or the Chinese government to study in China. And this year we have over 40 students who have applied for those scholarships. OU also sponsors travel programs to China, to get Oklahoma educators to China, to learn about China. And this past fall, in a new endeavor, the OU Confucius Institute partnered with Beijing Normal University to sponsor an international symposium here in Norman on the culture of Chinese characters and language, with speakers literally from all over the world here in Norman talking about Chinese characters. And in 2009, OUCI was named a Confucius Institute of the Year, which was kind of cool. Another important component of OU's engagement with China is Chinese literature today. This is a joint project between World Literature Today, the OU Confucius Institute, and Beijing Normal University. The goal of CLT is to make the works of contemporary Chinese authors, scholars, and critics more readily available to non-Chinese audiences. CLT publishes poetry in Chinese and English translation, as well as English translation of Chinese prose works, along with the writings of modern critics, both Chinese and Western critics and scholars about Chinese modern contemporary literature. CLT is also involved in a project to publish a series of books of contemporary Chinese literature into English. 4 are out, the 5th's almost ready, and there are 5 to go. CLT has also co-sponsored 3 international conferences in Beijing with Beijing Normal University on the dissemination of Chinese literature abroad. This is a fascinating time in Chinese literature. Actually, it was one of the speakers from OU at the conference a couple of years ago made the analogy between what's happening in China today in terms of literature is analogous to what happened in the U.S. in the early part of the 19th century, when what was basically a national literature was in the process of becoming a world literature. And just as in the U.S., so in China, not everybody was happy with that. So it continues to be a somewhat controversial issue as to what is the purpose of Chinese literature. Is it a local literature? Is it a world literature? And unfortunately, once your literature becomes popular, you lose control of it. And so I think realistically, we all have to say Chinese literature is very much becoming a world literature, which is of interest to all of us and drawing all of our attention. The Institute for U.S.-China Issues, the founder of tonight's feast, engages in and supports research and outreach activities that seek to better understand and improve U.S.-China relations. The Institute sponsors lectures, colloquia, conferences, retreats that bring together a broad array of academic, think tank, government, and business leaders from the U.S. and from China to discuss specific security concerns in U.S.-China relations. And for several years now, Pete has also sponsored a series of monthly lunchtime seminars featuring speakers from OU, speakers from outside of OU, getting together to talk about a variety of topics about China. And these seminars have played a key role in bringing together faculty members and students from all over the OU campus who have an interest in China. And the first function it serves is we get to know there are other people that care about China. And that's been pretty remarkable. And then we also together learn about different aspects of China. And that's been a major contribution to growing the community here at OU that has an interest in China. And Pete deserves special credit for his contributions to that. And most importantly, considering why we're here tonight, the Institute has sponsored the Newman Prize in Contemporary Chinese Literature beginning in 2008. And you're going to talk more about that, right? So I won't say too much. But I will mention that, as we all know, the inaugural winner of the Newman Prize was Mo Yan. Mo Yan, who we all know is a very well-known Chinese writer, then went on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2012. And all I can say is I only wish that our current laureate has the same fate. Since 1995, through the leadership of President Boren, OU has invested significant resources in expanding international engagement. These include the creation of the College of International Studies, whose dean is here tonight, the establishment of new majors in international area studies, Arabic, Italian, Chinese, the expansion of study abroad activities, and providing significant financial support through the presidential travel fellowships to help more OU students be able to travel abroad and to learn about the world firsthand. A major focus of President Boren's initiative has been to establish a comprehensive multidisciplinary program for teaching and research about China, which led to the creation of several new faculty positions here at OU with a focus on China. Pete Grease is one of those people who came as a result of that initiative. Prior to President Boren's arrival at OU in 1995, the Chinese language program consisted of a single non-tenure track faculty member. This year, that's it. This year, the Chinese language faculty comprises one tenured, two tenure track, and three tenure track, and one renewable term faculty member, as well as several instructors. So we've seen a significant growth of our Chinese language faculty, which is critical as a foundation for any program you're going to have about China or any other country. OU now also regularly hosts visiting scholars from China. Pete brings in a bunch of folks every year. Jonathan Stalling in World Literature Today is constantly bringing in people from different parts of China, and we have this constant flow of new people coming into OU to expose us to different things about what's going on in China. And so we've been learning about comparative Asian cultural communication, Chinese language pedagogy, social cognition, comparative cultural studies, China's energy security, and most recently, Chinese education system. In these and many other ways, the University of Oklahoma has become a major center for engagement with China. I personally believe that it is critically important for the future well-being of the world that people from different national and cultural backgrounds learn to understand and appreciate each other's culture and their viewpoints. I further believe that one of the best ways to enter into a culture that is not your own is to understand the perspectives and motivations of those who come from that culture, and that is through literature. Literature, and I have to add, in light of this year's laureate's contributions to screenwriting, film. Literature and film, no matter what the story or form, ultimately deals with the human condition and explores how ordinary human beings cope with the challenges of being alive, whether you're being alive in Shanghai or you're being alive in Norman. The stories allow us to enter societies that are alien to us and help us understand how a person raised in a culture different from our own perceives the world and approaches the challenges of everyday existence, how they formulate their hopes and dreams, how they go about trying to realize those dreams, and how they deal with success and failure in their lives. If we're ever to live in a world where violence ceases to be an acceptable solution to conflict, we must come to understand, appreciate, respect, and even protect the rich mosaic of people and cultures that make up our global community. This year's Newman Prize laureate, through her writing and her screenplays, have contributed significantly to our ability to better understand what it means to be Taiwanese, and equally importantly, human. Thank you.